All right, here we are for our first live stream of the 2024 season. If somebody that is live could post in the chat if the audio sounds okay, that's always the biggest one, is just knowing that the audio is working or not. So like I said, if somebody is on the stream and wants to put a little message in there. It's going to wait to start at 6:40 p.m. Central Time. All right, thank you, Ivy, for the confirmation that my audio is working. That's always, like I said, I can't hear myself on the live stream, so it's always just good to check. We'll give everybody another minute. All right, I'm showing 6:40 p.m., so we'll go ahead and get this show underway here. So, probably gonna have. I haven't done one of these in a few years. It seems like the at least the Western and Northern Gulf have been quiet since we had Hurricane Ida back in 2021. So, for those first-time viewers, kind of what this is. So, this is just even though I am a professional meteorologist and all. This is just me talking. I'm not like representing my employer or anything like that on here. And I don't really have a whole lot of really secret information or something. What I'm doing is going through stuff that's mostly pretty much all publicly available information here, but I just want to kind of explain it, provide a little context, give some insights behind what's going on in the official forecast. And yes, people should be able to see this after I sign off the live stream. I'll make sure that stays up. So anyway, without further ado, we're here for what we're calling potential tropical cyclone number 6. Not actually a depression or named tropical storm yet. Likely to become one pretty soon. This was a change the Hurricane Center made a couple of years ago, where if there's something developing, they used to wait till it was either a named system or a tropical depression before starting forecast on it. But a few years ago, I think it was certainly the right call. They decided, even if it's not developed yet, if there's something developing and threatening land, that they will begin issuing forecast on it to give people a heads up for these situations where you could have something developing and then moving towards land pretty quickly. So what we're looking at here, this is the satellite picture of our tropical system. And you'll see this transition line coming in from the east over here. This is the satellite actually transitioning from visible mode, which is what you see over here on the west side of the image where the sun's still up. And it's basically, just think of it as a giant camera looking down at the Earth. And then transitioning to infrared mode, where we're just seeing what is the temperatures of the cloud top. So if this does develop into a tropical storm, its name would be Francine. There is another system out in the Atlantic, I don't think way out in the far central Atlantic, that's developing quickly as well. I think this one will probably beat it to getting a name first. So it would be Francine. I'm actually not sure what the G name is. But likely Francine, we'll call it. So anyhow, what we're looking at here is the center is somewhere down in the Bay of Campeche right here. This is Mexico, northern Gulf Coast up here. And what I've got plotted on here, this is the radar picture that you can see from the coast. Now, there's probably a lot more heavy precipitation and thunderstorms way out. In fact, there certainly is out in the Bay of Campeche here, but the radar can only see about 150, 200 miles or so off the coast right there. So that's why you only see the the radar depiction up there close to the Gulf Coast. Then these little flags you see out here, this is what we call wind barbs. It's pointing which way the wind is coming from. So this station right here, or we can use this one here in New Orleans as an example. That's winds generally out of the north to northeast, and then it's showing us the speeds here. So this is winds out of the north to northeast at 20 to 25 knots. That's about 30 miles per hour or so. So already getting pretty breezy out in part of the Gulf of Mexico, and we can actually starting to already see that counterclockwise circulation around the low pressure. And so we see these northeasterly winds, and actually if we look at this station here, I'm not as familiar with the geography down here. I believe this is Cancun, Mexico, right here, showing that southeasterly wind on the southeast side of the area of low pressure. So right now, still fairly disorganized, but lots of deep thunderstorm activity. So it is getting its act together slowly out there. So what does the official forecast look like? So here's the cone product put out by the National Hurricane Center. In fact, they're already showing some tropical storm force winds associated with it. It just hasn't quite gotten to the level of organization where they've named it Tropical Storm Francine just yet. So the forecast brings it slowly north to northwestward towards the Rio Grande over the next 48 hours or so. Thereafter, we have a cold front that's coming down from the north that's going to kick it off to the northeast towards Louisiana. Right here in the forecast, 1 o'clock p.m. position for Wednesday has it just south of the Sabine River there, south of the Louisiana-Texas border. And it's always important to remember, this is just the forecast of the center of the storm. Cannot stress enough that the effects of the storm are going to extend well out, hundreds of miles from the center. So this is just where the center is forecast to track, excuse me, likely making landfall, it looks like late Wednesday as a Category 1 hurricane near Lake Charles, and then moving inland through the Mississippi Valley on Thursday and Friday. The good thing, excuse me, the good thing that we have here is it gets out of here pretty quickly. Still going to produce a lot of rain. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But it doesn't look like one of these situations where it's just going to stall over the Gulf Coast and, drop, 30, 40 inches of rain, something like that. Probably still looking at some hefty rainfall totals, but nothing extraordinary, it looks like. Then I always like to go to this because this kind of hammers home that idea of the impact's extending well away from the center. So this is the probability of tropical storm force winds at any time during the next 5 days. So this is through Friday afternoon here, and you can see those probabilities already showing up 30 to 40% here. And you might think, shouldn't that be a lot higher if the center is there? Well, this product is trying to consider some of the uncertainty in the track. The track could be, 100 miles to the west, 100 miles to the east, that could change where those strongest winds ultimately end up being there. So that's why you see those probabilities, even though it's close to where the center is, it's just kind of showing, like I said, based on the probability of it, the size of the storm. And so there's a lot of uncertainty in there, a lot of factors that play into that uncertainty, which is why we're showing that 30 to 40. But 30 to 40% is actually a pretty high probability, believe it or not, for sustained tropical storm force winds. So then we'll go to this product, which this is the most likely time of the most likely arrival time of the tropical storm force winds, or the onset of impacts. So I always like to use this as you should be wherever you're going to be for the storm and be completely ready for its arrival by the time indicated here. So if you're on anywhere from Houston along the Louisiana coast, that's Wednesday morning. And then you can see by Wednesday evening, the tropical storm force wind onset line is across central Louisiana. So that's what we're looking like as the impacts beginning really Wednesday morning, especially for the Houston area, and then spreading into Louisiana as we go into Wednesday afternoon. And then here's a look at the rainfall forecast here, showing a pretty wide area from about Houston over to Mobile of 4 to 6 inches of rain, but then the higher amounts near and to the east of the center, they're going 6 to 8 inches of rain from Lake Charles over towards maybe the Houma, Morgan City area there. Some areas will probably see more than this. Think of this as kind of like the average amount of rain over, a more widespread area. There's going to be pockets within this that are probably going to receive more than 12 inches of rain. From this storm. Again, this isn't looking like one of the, something like a Harvey or there was Hurricane Florence in the Carolinas a few years ago that dropped, 30, 40 inches of rain or more. This isn't looking like that, but even these, 6 to 12 inch rainfall amounts can produce quite a bit of flooding. So that's kind of the your headliners there, but let's look a little bit at some of this model data here. So what I'm showing here, this is what we call the ensemble forecast. So what it does, you have 3 major models here. You have the European model, the GFS model, which is run out of the U.S. by the National Weather Service, and then the U.K. Meteorological Office model here. And so you have those 3 models, but what an ensemble is it takes the initial state. So that this is actually one of the most challenging parts of model forecasting is you have to start with the initial state of the model. If your starting point is wrong, the rest of it's going to be wrong, and you can never get it exactly correct. So what we're trying to do is we say, okay, we know there's some uncertainty in that initial state of it. So if we change that initial state slightly and run the same model multiple times, what kind of different tracks do we get? So it lets us know how sensitive, if you will, the eventual track or intensity is to that initial state. So if we go forward in time with these models here, and then the colored areas are showing the probability of, or rather the density of those tracks. So the brighter colors, the greens, the yellows, the reds, show that there's a lot of tracks there, the blue are less. And now you're seeing a lot of blue, and that's because it looks like, at least for this most recent model cycle of model guidance, the European model, which is normally indicated by a red line, hasn't really picked up on a center yet on it. So we're really just running, we have, one of the big models here does not really seem to be latching on to the center yet. So we're only showing the GFS, which is the green one, and the blue, which is the UK Met. But those two are, I want you to notice something, how those two are on the right side right here, and all their little ensemble members, I was talking about those little variations they do in the model, a little bit to the left of it. So that would suggest to me, without going super into the weeds here, and that's what this black line is. This is the ensemble mean. So this is just going right up the center of all those little tracks right here. And so that would suggest to me that if anything, and I think this is what the Hurricane Center is biting on, if we go back to the official forecast, their official track has it making landfall near the Sabine River, which is pretty similar to what that ensemble mean is. So it looks like the Hurricane Center, they're not going quite as far to the right or as far to the east as the 2 main models, and they're keeping it, they're hedging their bets a little bit to the west here on that. And especially there can be a lot of uncertainty in the track forecast this early on, because again, like I said, the European model, for example, which is pretty valuable tool, has not really latched onto a center yet. So that's why it looks like the Hurricane Center is biasing their forecast a little bit to the west, which would put Lake Charles and Lafayette probably in most of the impacts versus a more easterly track that would affect Baton Rouge and New Orleans a lot more. I think it looks like, based on this, Houston is pretty well to the west of the center. Probably still close enough where if you're in Houston, you'd want to definitely keep an eye on it. It would not take much of a shift in that track to put Houston under the gun again. And, we had Beryl just a few months ago there. So don't want to rule out Houston just yet. But right now, I would say my top concern is probably Lake Charles, followed by Lafayette for this. For intensity, we'll go over and look at one of the models in particular here. There it is. This is the GFS model. Now, I want to stress here, this is just one model here that we're looking at. It's a pretty good tool here, but this will give us a little bit of an idea of kind of what we're looking at. So here's Monday morning. You still see that broad center out in the Bay of Campeche, but notice it's already having some pretty strong winds, 40, 43 knots or so. That's about 45 miles per hour there. So as I said, already getting an area of tropical storm force winds developing out there. So we just have to get the center to develop. As we go forward in time to Tuesday morning, the center is looking a lot better defined. In fact, winds approaching 60 knots here. So this is already, by Tuesday morning, this model is showing it as a strong tropical storm already. And then as we go into Wednesday morning right here. So this would be about 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. This is already looking like a Category 1 hurricane right here. So notably, the Hurricane Center intensity forecast seems to be a little bit below this particular model. I know in some of their discussions, they said it will be battling some wind shear out there. The water temperatures are plenty warm for it, but it will be battling a little bit of shear. So right now, it doesn't look like we're looking at something that's rapidly developing, blowing up to a really strong hurricane, but we never want to, rule out that possibility. The Gulf waters are quite warm out there. We haven't had a lot of systems to stir it up or anything this year. So, the official forecast is showing a Category 1 at landfall. I would prepare just to be on the safe side for a little higher than that. Category 2, even at 3, is not totally out of the question. And then if we move this model forward in time, this is Wednesday evening about 6 p.m. Again, this model is further to the east than what the Hurricane Center official track is showing. But this would equate to about a Category 1, Category 2 hurricane making landfall pretty much right at Vermilion Bay in Louisiana. That's going to put Lafayette, if you take this model at face value, right over Lafayette in Baton Rouge. And then here's by Thursday morning, it moving well inland across Mississippi, with those winds looking like along the coast really starting to subside by Thursday afternoon. So that's another important thing is the timing on this. It's looking like Wednesday as being the big day, Wednesday night, and then conditions improving Thursday on here. Again, this is one model. We'll have to see how the later models come in. And like I said, this one does seem to be a little bit to the right or to the east of where the official Hurricane Center track is on here. So I wouldn't jump totally on this, but just to kind of give you that idea of showing, it looking like Category 1, maybe Category 2 hurricane, Houston to Lafayette, we'll call it, right now is kind of the corridor to be watching. We'll see how those models trend over the next 24 hours or so. We've kind of really just gotten the first batch of good model data today from it, so we'll give it another 24 hours or so to see how it's going. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat right now. Feel free to drop some in there. But again, like I said, it's looking like Wednesday, Thursday for Louisiana, maybe late Tuesday for parts of the Texas coast, depending on how close to the Texas coast it ends up getting. Right now, it looks like he'll stay a little bit off the coast and be predominantly a Louisiana event. Again, rainfall looking like 6 to 10 inches of rain across much of South Louisiana. And one important point on that is I know they've been getting a lot of rain in South Louisiana. So streams are running high, the bayous and rivers are running high there. The ground is pretty saturated. So, even 6 to 10 inches of rain could cause some flooding there. Again, it's not something that's, screaming, widespread catastrophic flooding like we saw from something like a Hurricane Harvey, because remember that was a hurricane that sat directly over the Houston area for several days. This is not looking like that. This is looking like, an event probably lasting on the order of 24 to 36 hours, but that's still long enough to give you, certainly in some spots, a foot of rain or so. And then in terms of storm surge, it'd be along the coast, anywhere near and to the right or to the east of where it makes landfall. Cameron Parish, Vermilion Parish over towards St. Mary. Right now, we'll get those. They'll get those details refined over the next few days. See a question for how wide is the storm. It looks like at the time it makes landfall. Whoops, I lost my. Move the little slider back here. I mean, based on this, the tropical storm force winds extend from about Galveston to not quite Grand Isle, maybe Morgan City or so. I'm thinking that's 150, 200 miles across of the area of tropical storm force winds. The hurricane force wind area tends to be a lot more compact towards the center of it. Maybe that part of the storm maybe 40 to 60 miles wide or so. So that's really kind of your target. I mean, if this thing's going to be the center of it's going to be within about 50 miles of you'd want to prepare for hurricane force winds, but right now, the way this is looking, I think almost anywhere in Louisiana is going to be fair game for at least tropical storm force winds. Hurricane force winds, again, kind of that, I'll refine it maybe to like Beaumont, to about Morgan City or so. But again, we're still talking a few days away here. We'll get some more model data, see how this goes. As far as, I always get the question, when's the next live stream going to be? It's going to be, for me, it's going to be a little bit of a busy week here. I'll try to give some more updates on these. Might be late tomorrow, like 8 o'clock late or so. So I'll pass the live stream to the usual channels. Hopefully we get some more information. Do follow if you're on social media, Southwest Louisiana. Follow the Lake Charles Weather Service office on Twitter/X, Facebook, all that. They do a lot of really great live streams on there. If you're in Southeast Texas, you have the Houston Weather Service office. New Orleans or Slidell covers Southeast Louisiana. Follow some of their updates as well from the Hurricane Center. As far as the potential for the eye going over Lafayette, that's what this one particular model shows, but I wouldn't zero in on that just yet. But I would certainly be keeping a very close eye on this for Lafayette right now. Again, anywhere from Houston to New Orleans should really be watching this closely over the next few days. And then hopefully as we get to especially Tuesday, we'll get a much better idea of where the worst impacts are going to be. So that is all I had to share for now. We'll do this again in maybe another 24 hours or